What's going on, guys? It's NYPrepper here. In this video we're going to be doing another 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum penetration test. We're going to be testing some Underwood Ammo Xtreme Penetrator bullets. On the left you have the 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator, and on the right you got the 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator. We're going to be shooting it at some 2x10 Douglas fir framing joists that we screwed together. And we're going to see what kind of penetration we get with these rounds here. So stick around and let's see what happens. Alright guys, so first up is the Underwood Ammo 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator. This one travels at 1650 feet per second and it generates 2600 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. So let's see what kind of penetration we get with this round. So stay tuned. This is what the 420 grain box looks like from Underwood. These are really hard to find now due to the pandemic. They're all sold out, but I found some on Gunbroker. Alright, so stand by and let's see how many boards we can penetrate with this. Alright, here we go. Alright guys, so now we're going to shoot the 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator, and it looks like this. It's absolutely monstrous round here. This is also Underwood. All right, Underwood ammo. 350 grain extreme penetrator that's made by Lehigh Defense, and it's traveling at 1850 feet per second. All right, so let's see what kind of penetration we get with this round here. I mean, this thing is just absolutely huge. It's like a you know, it's like the size of a piece of chapstick, basically. It looks like the size of a piece of chapstick. It's monstrous. All right, so let's see what happens. Let's see how much penetration we get, so stick around. Wow, that's some really accurate ammo, guys. The recoil is noticeably less on the 350 grains. Noticeably less recoil. All right, guys, so I got the boards back at my house and I just unscrewed all of them. And so the 350 grain Lehigh Defense Underwood Xtreme Penetrator penetrated through 5 2x10s. Okay, these are Douglas fir framing joists that I picked up at Home Depot. Okay, these are just standard 2x10 Douglas fir framing joists. All right, so the 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator from Underwood went through 5 2x10s, and these are actually, the bullets are made by Lehigh Defense. All right, but these are the Underwood version of, you know, loaded by Underwood. Okay, and those were going at 1,850 feet per second out of the Underwood factory test barrel, which is 7.5 inches. All right, so the 420 grain Xtreme Penetrators went through 6 boards. Okay, so the 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator out penetrated the 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator by just one, maybe 1.5 boards, okay? So not a huge difference. The 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator had noticeably more recoil, okay? When I was shooting it, you could feel the difference between the two, okay? And obviously you have an extra 70 grains of bullet weight with the 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator over the 350 grain. So that extra bullet weight will make you feel the recoil more, but it was noticeably more. The 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator was very comfortable to shoot. The recoil and the muzzle flip was much lower than I expected. I expected the muzzle flip to be very high because it's a very high velocity cartridge. All right, the Underwood is pushing. The Underwood loading is pushing that 350 grain Lehigh Defense Xtreme Penetrator at 1800 feet per second, so that's very high velocity. But for that high velocity, the muzzle flip was very minimal and the recoil was very manageable. So that was one of the positive things about the 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator, okay, is that the recoil was probably, I would say, 20% less than the 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator. The 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator recoiled about the same as the Buffalo Bore 440 grain hard cast grizzly bear loads that you guys have seen me test before. All right, it's very stout. They felt very stout. Okay, the 350 grainers were milder. Okay. Also, I will say that the accuracy on the 350 grainers, they seemed a little bit better than the 420 grainers. The 350 grain had very tight groups, you know, very, very accurate, the 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator. So what I did was I circled the holes here so you guys could see which ones were the 420 and which ones were the 350. So this is board number 1, so I took 3 shots with the 420, and you see I got this 3-shot group here, and then the 350 I got these 3 shots here, okay? So just keep that in mind as I'm going through the boards, all right? You see they made a full pass-through on the first board, okay? So moving on to the second board, you can see they also passed through the second board. Now you can ignore this hole here. I was shooting another bullet there. I was doing a test for myself with that one. So just ignore this hole right here. But they all passed through the second board. Okay, you can see those exit holes. You can see with that Xtreme Penetrator, it doesn't expand like a soft point or a hollow point. But you can see the exit holes are a little bit bigger than pure hard cast or pure solids, okay? Slightly larger, and you'll see as the bullets penetrated deeper, the wound channel in the wood was larger, okay? And the exit holes started to get larger towards the end of the penetration path, okay? And that's because of the way the bullet is shaped. Those Underwood or Lehigh Defense Xtreme Penetrators, they're designed to be a balance between, let's say, something like a hard cast or a solid and a hollow point or a soft point. They're supposed to be somewhere in the middle. They're supposed to penetrate like a solid and do damage like a soft point or a hollow point, okay? And I'll show you guys the bullets in a second, and I'll explain more about that. But so here's the third board. We penetrated the third board with all of them, okay? And here's what the exit holes look like. All right, you can see those clean exit holes, okay? Now we'll go on to the fourth board here. And here's where things start to get interesting, is after the fourth board. They all penetrated the fourth board here, okay? And you can see the exit holes are starting to get a little bit larger than the first board. You can see just a little bit more, you know, the damage of these exit holes are larger, and the damage to the wood is a little bit bigger, okay? And You know, that's all by design. That's the way the Lehigh Defense, the way they designed those extreme penetrators. Here's the 5th board. All right, and you can see these entrance holes are starting to get quite large. You know, look at this one from the 420 grain bullet. Okay, you can, I mean, I can almost fit my thumb in there. All right, look at this one here. Okay, and that's not due to expansion. It has nothing to do with expansion. It has to do with the shock wave. Okay, the hydrostatic shock from the velocity and the impact when the bullet is traveling through the wood. It's the hydrostatic shock. Okay, it's the, you know, it's hard to explain, you know, but it has nothing to do with expansion at this point. All right, so they all penetrated here. The only thing is the 2 of the 350 grainers, I'm gonna call it that they penetrated the 5th one, but really they got stuck on the end, on the outside of the 5th board, like this one right here. You can see this extreme penetrator right there. All right, it's stuck on the outside of the 5th board here. Okay, they all penetrated in a straight line. The only reason why this is on an angle is because I was standing and I was shooting down at an angle. It did kind of veer off of its path a little bit, but a lot of that has to do with the way that these bullets are designed. You know, they're not designed to be pure penetrators like a flat nose hard cast or a flat nose solid. They're designed to do some damage in addition to penetrate. So they're going to tumble just a little bit, but they still pretty much maintained a straight line. So here's another one of the 350 grain bullets sticking out of the 5th board. I'm going to say that this one penetrated. Okay. All right, so that's the 5th board. Okay, let me put this one down, and now we're on the 6th board here. Here we have one of the 350 grain bullets here. You can see the base of the bullet anchor, you know, this bullet's anchored into the 6th board. This is the 350 grain bullet, okay? And you can see the dents that were left by the other 350 grainers. And the 420 grain, 2 of them passed through fully, okay? 2 of them passed through the 6th board fully, and one of them kind of tumbled, you know, tumbled just a little bit, and it kind of went up into the wood. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Right in there, it must have been going straight, and maybe there was a knot in the wood or something, and when it hit the knot, it kind of turned it upward and it went up into the wood. All right, you can see the base of the bullet in there. Okay, you see that? All right, so very interesting results. All right, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull these bullets out and we're going to weigh them. And these are the exit holes on the 6th board from the 2 420 grainers, okay? And so what this is the 7th board here. I forgot to show you the 7th board. And you can see that the 420 grainers got stuck in the 7th board, okay? This one pretty much penetrated in an exactly straight line, all right, and it left a little bit of a kind of a dent on the back side of this board, on the 7th board here, okay, and then this one also kind of tumbled a little bit and its nose went up, all right. So but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these bullets out. I'm going to weigh them. We're going to see what kind of weight retention they had. We're going to see if there was any deformation. Okay. So stand by for that. And one last thing I will say about these boards here is that the 500 grain Hornady XTP penetrated through 4 2x10s. And that's only a soft nose, and that one's traveling at 1,400 feet per second or so. And these 350 grain Underwoods, these extreme penetrators, only penetrated 1 more board than the 500 grain XTP. And arguably the XTP, you know, does much more damage because it's a soft point and it expands. So, you know, decent penetration here. I wouldn't say it's anything crazy. You know, the hard cast bullets, they penetrated through 8 or 9 boards. The buffalo bore bear loads that I have penetrated through 8 to 9 boards. So this is these penetrators are somewhere between the soft points and the hard cast bear loads. All right, so kind of a medium level of penetration for the 500 Smith & Wesson. All right, guys. So I recovered the bullets. We're going to weigh them. But before I do that, I just want to show you guys the bullets up close and explain to you a little bit about the way these bullets are designed. Okay, so what we have here is, on the left side is the 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator. And on the right side we have the 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator. You can see the 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator is probably about 1/4 of an inch longer, okay, and I'll get an exact measurement for you soon. All right, so it's slightly longer, which is going to help with penetration depth and keeping it stable. But this 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator is about as long as my 440 grain hard cast bullets. All right, so this, although it's a lighter bullet, it's copper, but because it's copper, it has to be larger. So although it's lighter than lead, all right, because they have to use more copper, the bullet ends up having more sectional density than lead, okay? Just because it's a longer bullet, the lighter bullets are longer, okay? So that's an interesting little thing about copper bullets. But if you look at the nose of the bullet here, you could see it has these cutouts here on the nose, okay? And you could see, if you look, those cutouts there in the nose of the bullet, and what that does is help it to penetrate and cut through tough material, okay? Because it has sharp edges. But what it also does is it creates hydrostatic shock, all right? Because of these grooves that are cut into the nose here, you can see those grooves there, all right? That creates a hydrostatic shock. It displaces material and tissue, all right? Versus just a regular flat nose bullet, like a hard cast bullet or a solid penetrator that doesn't have these cutouts in the nose. That one's not going to create as much hydrostatic damage and tissue displacement, okay? It's just going to punch through like a laser. It's going to make a clean hole, but it's not going to do as much damage as something like this. And if you look at the nose here, it has these 4 flat points on it, and it has like a little bit of almost like a hollow point, you know, because it has those 4 flat points, okay? But then on the inside, there's like a little, almost like a hollow point in a sense. You could see the way it's machined. It has a little hole in the front, in the nose, okay? It's almost like a hollow point. So it's a very interesting concept, and what it does is it gives you a balance of penetration and expansion. You know, it penetrates, but it also displaces tissue and does damage. Instead of just punching through and leaving a small hole, this will kind of give you the performance of a controlled expanding bullet and similar penetration as a controlled expanding bullet, all right? So it's kind of a blend of a full penetrator and an expander, all right? And that's what makes these Xtreme penetrators very interesting and kind of innovative, okay? And you can actually see the crimp grooves on these. There's three crimp grooves, okay? And just has a flat base there, okay? And it's solid copper. But you could just see how massive these 420 grain bullets are, just huge. Okay, just look at how much bigger they are than the 350 grain bullets. They're much longer. But I mean, any of these bullets are just absolutely massive. I mean, these are 50 caliber bullets. I mean, anything you hit with a bullet this big is going to feel it, and it's going to break bones. It's going to penetrate through heavy muscle and fur. Okay, this is what you want for dangerous game defense. And you know, the 350 grain is much more moderately recoiling than the 420 grain. Okay, so if you're somebody who's sensitive to recoil, the 350 grain may be the choice for you. Okay, it penetrates deep, but it doesn't have the massive recoil. All right, and so it allows you to put a lot of shots downrange in a faster amount of time than with the heavier bullets. So stick around, guys, and we're gonna weigh these and take a closer look, do some measurements. So stay tuned. All right, guys, I'm back at my reloading bench here, and I got the 350 grain and 420 grain Xtreme penetrators, and I'm ready to weigh them and take some measurements. And I'm also going to compare them to some other 500 Magnum bullets that I've tested in the past, and I'll show you guys how they look in comparison to some of those other bullets. So stand by, and we're going to start doing these measurements now. So I got my Lyman powder scale, and I'm just going to zero it out here. So I have my my weight here. This is a 100-gram weight, and we're going to just zero out the scale and make sure that it's calibrated properly. Okay. All right, and it says pass. That means that it's calibrated. So we're going to switch to grains now, and we're going to start weighing. So here we have the 420 grain Xtreme penetrators. Look at how massive these bullets are. Huge. Just look at the thickness on these half-inch diameter bullets here, and very little deformation on these. Okay. All right, if you look up closely here, you can see there's no deformation at all. It didn't deform at all whatsoever, and so that's a good sign. And all right, so let's weigh these guys. So the first one, 419.3 grains. So that's pretty much 100% weight retention. 419.3 again. All right, now we're going to move on to the 350 grain bullets. And you can see these also retain their weight very nicely. And look at these beautiful copper bullets here. All right, look at these. These are pretty big for a 350 grain bullet. Look at how long they are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare them to some other bullets that I have. So here we have 394. And then now we have 349 and 349. All right, so all of these bullets had pretty much 99.9% weight retention, which is what I expected. So what I'm going to do now is I just want to take some measurements of these bullets to show you guys how long these bullets are. And like, for example, the 350 grain Xtreme penetrator is almost as long as the 440 grain hard cast, which is right here on the right side, and it's actually longer. Okay, and the only reason why it's longer is because the 440 grain hard cast, as you can see, it smeared its nose. Okay, and that's what happens with hard casts, because even though it's a hard cast lead, it's still lead, so the nose will get smeared and flattened out. All right, which is normal. But if it wasn't flattened out, it would probably be pretty much the same length as the 440 grain hard cast bullets that you can find for your 500 Magnum. All right, like the cast performance bullets that I have for my reloading. Okay, but so I want to just quickly show you the difference in length between the 420 grain and the 350 grain. So the 350 grain bullet is roughly 0.97 inches long. So that's a long bullet, guys. You're talking about a 1-inch long bullet here. And now the 420 grain bullet is 1.14 inches. Okay, so you know, you're talking about almost a 1/4 inch longer. The 420 grain bullet is almost a 1/4 inch longer, as you can see here. Okay, it's a very long bullet. It's almost 1.25 inches long. And that'll give the 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator very good sectional density. And it'll help it to penetrate in a straight line because it's very long. So it's not as easily deflected. All right. The longer a bullet is, the more stable it's going to be when it impacts any kind of tissue or hard object. All right, short, fat bullets don't penetrate well, and they can be very easily deflected. So, but I'm very impressed with both of these bullets. The 420 grain is definitely a little bit more of a sledgehammer type round. When you shoot this thing, you definitely feel the power. It feels a lot similar recoil to my 440 grain Buffalo Bore ammo that I shoot. It's very similar recoil. It has that, you know, bear load type feel. It feels like a bear load when you're shooting it. It has a lot of thump and power. Okay, you can feel the power in your hand when you're shooting this 420 grain bullet. And the 350 grain bullet, it doesn't have that thump. It doesn't have that same level of recoil as the 420 grain. Okay, it's definitely a lot more moderate recoil. I would say that it's probably about 20% less recoil, maybe even 25% less recoil. All right, so you know, this is a good multi-purpose load. The 350 grain from Underwood Ammo Xtreme Penetrator, in my opinion, is a good multi-purpose load for hunting, for self-defense, even for bear defense. I would not hesitate at all. I wouldn't feel undergunned if I had this 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator and I had to deal with a bear or a angry moose or something like that. Obviously for brown bear, you know, it would be better to have a 440 grain hard cast. That would be the optimal load. This is the deepest penetrating bullet that I have tested so far. Out of the Buffalo Bore version of this 440 grain hardcast, penetrated through 9 2x10s, which is absolutely incredible. Almost double the penetration of these guys. This 440 grain hardcast from Buffalo Bore has extreme penetration. So this would be your best choice for a bear load, especially brown bear. But I wouldn't feel undergunned if I had either of these 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator or 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator. And what's nice about them is they have these cutouts here which help to displace tissue. It has this little hollow point in the front which creates sort of like a shock wave and hydrostatic shock. And another thing I want to do is compare it to the 400 grain Lehigh Defense flat nose solid, all right, that they also have. So these are all Lehigh Defense bullets, by the way, and this is the Lehigh Defense 400 grain flat nose, okay. And I want to show you guys how long they are in comparison to each other. So on the left you have the 420 grain, in the middle you have the 400 grain flat nose, and on the right you have the 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator. So you can see that the 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator is much longer than the 400 grain flat nose and the 350 grain Xtreme Penetrator. Now, all right guys, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and in conclusion, so both of them provided very good penetration, almost 100% weight retention, no deformation. They penetrated pretty much in a straight line. There was some very slight tumbling with the 420 grain Xtreme Penetrator at the very end of its penetration path. But, you know, either of these bullets I would not hesitate to use at all against pretty much any, you know, dangerous game animal or hunting scenario. With the exception of you know, big brown bears, I would probably want that heavy hard cast bullet, the 440 grain hard cast, which penetrated through 9 2x10s. All right, so that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna have many more penetration tests from the 500 Magnum as well as 44 Magnum, And I'm also going to be doing some hand loads, and we'll be testing some of my hand loads. And I'm really excited to do some anti-personnel 500 Magnum hand loads, okay, which are going to be lower velocity and lower kick and designed more for home defense. All right, so that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 P's: prepare, practice, and persevere.